Alrighty, we are back with Dissident by Lisa Beeson. Book 4 in the Transcendent series. Chapter 3. Welcome back, my 7 subscribers. How exciting. I'm not being able to really get this well framed. Shimmy on over. Shimmy. A shimmy. Alright. We'll try it right here. Right here, right now. Let's do this thing. Chapter 3. That banging sound would be the wind against one of my... Gosh, I can't think of the name right now. OSB board blockades. Ignore it. Guess I should look down here, but then I can't see me. Which way am I going to look? I don't know. Alrighty, chapter 3, let's do this. If you remember, we left off of Skylar being woken by Enzo and told to disappear. But by the looks of the start of this next chapter, we're not going to quite find out what's going on there just yet. Listen to my animals being so quiet. Not like me. Alrighty. Chapter 3. Ari's consciousness went directly from Skylar's dream into one of her vivid lost memories. Rise up, Pakyo, Rosura urged her as she shook little Senna awake. Senna rubbed the sleep from her eyes, then obediently sat up without complaint. For even though she could see that the sun was far from rising, the fact that Rosura had called her Pakyo, a word that meant favored student, in her Narakan dialect, meant that Senna had an important lesson to learn. Yes, Shatu, she answered, using the word for revered teacher. Rosura handed Senna some clothes. Dress quickly, then you will follow me. Little Senna obeyed as expediently as she could. Once she was dressed, Rosura helped wrap her pale hair into the coil of a dark cloth. As Rosura wound it around her head and fastened it in place, Senna envied the way Rosura's hair naturally changed color in darkness. Senna's hair stood out no matter what kind of light there was. When Rosura was finished, she grabbed Senna's hand and led her into the adjoining room. Where are we going, Raya? Senna whispered, as Rosura opened the secret panel that led from her room to the hidden corridors within the walls of the temple. After Rosura ushered Senna into the dark passageway and closed the door behind them, she answered, Into the low forest. Excited, Senna asked, Why? I spoke with High Sage Emin of your dream, she whispered, whilst she led Senna down the dark passageway. Her Zanahari eyes perfectly suited to navigate in the darkness. Senna followed the light of Rosura's shaza as she wondered what her dream had to do with leaving the temple grounds. She also wondered why her caretaker would bother telling High Sage about her dream. She hadn't seemed concerned the previous morning when Senna had told her about it immediately after waking. What did High Sage Emin say about my dream? Senna asked while hurrying to catch hold of Rosura's cloak so she could keep pace with her strong, swift strides. Struggling here I am. Yes. He said it was only a dream, and we should do nothing, Rosura answered without looking back, continuing to move sure-footed down a set of spiraling stone steps. Though confused by her caretaker's words and actions, Senna continued to jog obediently behind Rosura, while she expertly led her through the secret corridors. She trusted her beloved caretaker completely, And even if she didn't understand the lesson now, she knew that it was sure to be revealed in time. It always was. As they traveled down more stairs and through rocky tunnels, Senna thought back to her dream. It had begun with the giant Nahalu soldiers of the Anasaru chasing her away from the temple and through a dark gateway that led to an immense maze. Once inside the maze, the soldiers had stopped pursuing her, but she had become completely lost in the twists, turns, and constantly moving pathways. She could not find her way back out, no matter which way she took. She was lost in the maze for so long that by the time she had finally found a way out, she had grown almost to adulthood. Weary and battle-scarred, she eventually found her Owen waiting for her, but by then they were strangers to each other. The memory of the dream gave her chills and filled her with despair. It had felt so different from her normal dreams. But if High Sage Aemon had said that it meant nothing, why was Rosura taking it so seriously now? They reached the end of a long tunnel and climbed down a steep set of cut rock stairs. The roar of water signaled that they were approaching the hidden entrance. It led out onto a sheer rocky ledge behind the misty veil of the water that flowed from the belly of the lush plateau of the temple grounds. Senna was surprised to realize that they had already traveled so far. Without her even being aware, she chided herself for being so distracted. Rosura had taught her since she was a babe that she should always be aware. Senna sensed that no one was near, so she was confident that her clandestine excursion outside the grounds had not been discovered. Rosura had secreted Senna outside of the temple grounds only twice before. Once, when she was teaching her about the flora and fauna of Nan, and the second, when she showed her how her people navigated the wilds without detection. It had been exciting and exhilarating, to say the least, holding on tight while Rosura ran and maneuvered through the trees in seamless synchronization with the rhythms of the plant's shazai, the creatures undisturbed by their presence. Rosura had been astonished when Senna was able to perform the ways of the Zanahari race as well. None of the other races were able to master swimming through the rhythms, or niskatan, as they said in Narakan. Even the Zanahari could not master it until after maturity. After they carefully inched their way along the slippery ledge towards the tops of the cloud forest surrounding the plateau, Rosura looked up at the celestial path of the dead moon, Chana, crossing between Nan and the looming planet of Emuria. She motioned for Senna to climb onto her back. Senna took this to mean that they must make their way through the cloud forest quicker than Senna could go on her own. For although she was adept at Niskatan, Rosura was bigger and stronger and could move faster. Senna climbed onto her caretaker's back. Rosura wrapped and tied her cloak around them in a way that would keep Senna's little body securely attached to her. Once she was satisfied that Senna was properly secured, Rosura attuned her shazai with the rhythms of the forest's frequencies, instructing Senna to do the same. She leaped from the rocky ledge into the canopy of the trees, swinging, climbing, and jumping from branch to branch with ease. They moved down the outside of the plateau's edge, out of the shimmery mist of the clouds and deep into the lower forest levels, farther than they had ever gone before. The sights of the plants and the creatures they passed as Rosura moved swiftly across the massive fractal branches of the canopy enchanted Senna. From the glimpse of the flowered antlers of a climbing Athispa to the head of a long-necked behemoth Daraganda peeking through the foliage as it ate its fill of the purple canopy leaves. Senna was sure that they were approaching the lands of the Naraka clan, and she had to calm her excitement over the prospect of actually meeting the people of Rosura's stories. Then suddenly, yet soundlessly, Rosura stopped and perched herself between the convergence of two large branches. She untied her cloak and let Senna slide down to find her own spot. Rosura sniffed the air, then pointed down towards another tree where a mother Leviathan was watching over her nest in the large hollow in the trunk. "Look, Paku," she whispered. "Do you see?" Senna gave a quick rightward tilt of her head in assent as she watched the scaly-skinned creature scan the forest for potential threats to her nest of eggs. Her blue, black, and red markings were striking against the bark of the tree. Senna had never seen a Leviathan in real life before. The creature was larger, more fearsome, and more majestic than she had expected. The mother crawled out of the hollow onto a branch and spread out the thin skin membranes between her front and back legs in a show of strength and intimidation to any creatures who might pose a threat to her offspring. The color patterns of her belly and gliding membranes mirrored the shadows of the canopy, making it hard for prey to see her coming from above. Her movements seemed unusually swift, but it was only because Senna and Rizura's rhythms were attuned with that of the trees, whose frequencies were slower than their own. The Leviathan began barking out a high-pitched screech that gave Senna the chills and made her hair stand on end. Finally satisfied that there were no immediate threats to her eggs, the mother Leviathan became silent, then sinisterly slinked away from her nest. "Why is she leaving her eggs?" Senna whispered. "She must feed," Rizura answered. "Her eggs will hatch soon, and she must have enough energy to feed and watch over her babies." Senna counted 6 eggs in the nest. Each one was a deep, dark purple and as shiny as a jewel, embossed by a web of hexagons that gave it strength and stability. She desperately wished to touch one, but she knew better. According to Rizura, many have met their death for disturbing a Leviathan nest. A moment later, Rizura sniffed the air again, then placed a calming hand on Senna's shoulder, while motioning for her to stay silent. She pointed out 3 caciques skulking swiftly through the shadows from the lowest depths of the forest, towards the unprotected nest. Their dark, thickly muscled bodies and sharp talons made only the barest of sounds as they climbed up the maze of thick branches. Though Senna feared the stealthy creatures greatly, she forced herself to stay calm and keep her pulse steady. Part of Niskatan was keeping calm and not disturbing the rhythms of the Shazai around them. Breaking the synchronization would risk them being discovered by the creatures. Having Rizura by her side, a proven warrior of her people, helped to calm her. 2 of the caciques kept the darker shadows, while one climbed its way up to the Leviathan's eggs. Senna continued to force herself to breathe steadily as she watched the cacique devour one of the eggs and take a couple more to hold in the large pouches of its cheeks. Just as the cacique began to move away from the nest, a blurred streak glided down from the higher branches and struck right into the cacique's side, knocking it away from the nest and down to the branches below, as she watched the creatures viciously combat each other. Senna realized that the streak had been the mother Leviathan. One of the other caciques joined into the fray, while the third one made an attempt at the nest. The mother fought valiantly against her foes, slashing and tearing with her knife-like teeth and claws, while they did the same to her. Senna had never seen such savagery before. She had to turn away from the gore before she became sick. Rizura firmly took a hold of Senna's head and turned it back towards the rapidly fighting creatures. Senna struggled against Rizura's grip, but when she realized that she was no match for Rizura's strength, she shut her eyes tightly against the violence. Listening to the rending flesh and the screeches of the injured creatures, and smelling the blood and carnage was bad enough. She didn't want to see any more of what she knew would haunt her dreams. "No, Paku. You must watch. You must see and accept the violence," Rizura whispered harshly in Senna's ear. "No, Raya, I do not want to." Senna's voice quavered as she whispered back, "I can't. It's too horrible." "Open your eyes, Senna. I demand it." Senna knew that she must obey, because if she did not heed her caretaker's command, there would be harsh consequences later. She opened her tearful eyes as she controlled her breathing, and witnessed the mother Leviathan savagely fleeing one of the caciques off the branch, to fall to its death far below. Then the second. The third cacique was trying to escape with more eggs, and though she was already gravely injured herself, the mother was able to take a bite out of the cacique before it severed her head from her neck with a vicious swipe of its talons. With the mother Leviathan finally defeated, the cacique skulked away back into the shadows with its bounty, leaving a bloody trail behind it. The beautiful, majestic mother was slain, her lifeblood mixing with the blood of her foes. With the skirmish over, Rosura released her hold on Senna's head and leaned back against the thick branch of the tree, keeping one knee bent, ready to push off at any sign of danger from the surrounding jungle. Though aware of everything around them, Rosura's keen, reflective eyes were only on her charge, studying her reaction. Senna hung her head, and the tears that had been welling in her eyes fell to the ground below. "Why, Chateau?" she whispered with a dispirited sigh. "Why did you make me watch such a thing?" "Because it was something you needed to see. You must be aware of and accept the necessary violence of life. For what we just witnessed," she said, pointing down at the carnage below, "that is what makes up life. The Leviathan must care for and protect its children, and the cacique needs to eat to live and feed its own children. Life is not always pleasant, Paku. Life is pleasure and pain, happiness and sorrow, satiation and hunger. It can be beautiful," she said, gesturing to the beauty of the forest around them, "and it can be raw and ugly." She gestured down to the ruined corpse of the Leviathan. "You can't truly know one without the other. All of it, the love, the danger, the beauty, the violence, that is what life is." She pushed away from the branch to crouch in front of Senna so they could be eye to eye. "Look at me, Sen," she gently insisted. Senna raised her eyes to meet Rosura's. They were serious, but not unkind. The sages and your parents wish to shelter you from the dangers and ugliness of life. I understand their motives, but this would be a great disservice to you. Keeping you ignorant of such things will only cripple you in times of strife. You need to be prepared for all that life has in store for you, or it will break and destroy your beautiful spirit. Senna saw the truth in Rosura's eyes as her caretaker paused to wipe the tears from her charge's face with the corner of her cloak. "Yes, what happened between those creatures was terrible and sad, but there was no malice or evil in what we just witnessed. Only natural instinct. There is no such thing as a perfect life, where everyone lives and loves and nothing sad or horrible ever happens. There is only the balanced rhythms of the great song that flow and influence the cycles of life. You must know the difference between necessary violence and the malicious intent of those who go against the rhythms of the great song. The discord you sometimes feel is the clashing currents of those fighting against the balance. There is much unrest in Anu, Paku. There are many with malicious intent ready to trample the weak and innocent to get what they desire. The more we look away and deny the ugliness, the more it will grow, until one day it will sneak up on our turned backs, catching us unprepared, and destroy everything we love and cherish. You must learn the difference between a warrior and a murderer, Paku. For there may come a time when you will be called to use necessary violence. That, she said emphatically, is why I was chosen to watch after you, and not another. I was chosen to make you strong. I was chosen to raise you to be a warrior, to stand and to fight for what is right, according to the rhythms of the great song. But Raya, I don't want to harm anyone. I know this, Sen. Rosura placed her hand over Senna's heart. And we will continue to nourish that want. But you must be prepared to do so if necessary, or the act will tear you apart. She looked deep into Senna's eyes, while desperation filled her own. You cannot be found lacking. We need you to be whole, Senna. We need you to be wise and strong. Do you understand the lesson I am teaching you? Thinking it over, Senna's heart still hurt for the creatures, but she felt as though she understood now. Well, that was a loud truck. Gamora! Settle down, baby. It's okay. Gamora. Settle down, sweetheart. Oh, everyone was so nice and quiet before. It is all right, my loves. Settle down. We'll be continuing the rotation shortly. And after I refill all the water, Mufasa and Gabby, it'll be your turn. Okay. Thinking it over, Senna's heart still hurt for the creatures, but she felt as though she understood now. High Sage Ammon dismissed her dream because he wanted to deny the ugliness of life and did not want to think of any harm coming to her. He wanted to keep her safe and sheltered, and he felt confident that the temple could do that for her. So why disrupt things? Rosura disagreed and thought that shielding Senna would be a mistake. She brought Senna out here to teach her that life is more than the peace and safety of the temple, that there would be strife and hardships, and she must be prepared for that, however unpleasant it might be. Yes, Shatu, I understand. Good, Rosura said with loving pride in her eyes. Then she brought the small girl into her embrace. Gamora. Enough, my child. And stop tipping over your food bowl, please. You guys are wasting so much food and making a mess. Good, Rosura said with loving pride in her eyes, and she brought the small girl into her embrace. Sorry, just had a flashback to the dream I had last night. I had forgotten it, and now I remember it. And now I kind of wish I didn't remember it. It was quite a dark dream. Not very fun. Oh, back to the story. Senna wrapped herself around her beloved caretaker. The lesson had been harsh, but she understood the necessity of it, and she didn't love Rosura any less. After they drew apart, Senna looked down at the ravaged nest and almost gasped at the sight of a lone, undamaged egg. Its Shaza still held a small spark of life. Look, Raya, she said, pointing down at the lone survivor. The cacique's missed one. Rosura looked to the spot where she pointed and nodded. It will not last long without its mother. Senna's heart ached. There must be something that could be done. She couldn't willingly turn her back on the helpless creature. Please, Raya, we must help it live. What does the great song tell you? She asked in a guarded tone. Senna took a deep breath to clear her thoughts so she could be still and listen, abandoning the rhythms of the trees so she could be in tune with the rhythms of the great song. She focused on the egg. She felt its shaza pulse with the spark of life, and there was no discord, only acceptance. After reverting back to the rhythm of the trees, she turned to Razura with a smile. "It is the right thing to do, Raya. I feel it is so." "The sages will not like it. Leviathans are wild and dangerous creatures," she warned. "I will raise it to be respectful and loyal," Senna said with the unshakable certainty of a child. "If anyone could do it, it would be you," Razura said with an indulgent smirk. "Are you sure that you want this responsibility?" Senna remained resolute. "It is the right thing to do." Razura slowly tilted her head in reluctant assent. "Then we will save the egg and raise the creature in secret, but only until it can fend for itself." Senna embraced Razura with unbridled joy. The memory faded, and Ari found herself slowly coming back to consciousness. Her eyes blinked open to see Mother Am's sweet, wrinkled face smiling benevolently down at her. "Not yet, child," she said, her voice soothing and calm. "You need more rest so you can heal and remember. We will keep your body strong, but you must work on your mind." She placed an earthenware mug to Ari's lips. "Drink this. It will help keep you asleep until the time is right." Ari took a couple of slow sips of the steaming brew. It was sweet with an earthy aftertaste. It was strange, but not terrible. Almost immediately her limbs became heavy, and her thoughts fuzzy as a thick drowsiness began to overtake her. However, something crept at the back of her mind, scraping against her consciousness, keeping her from a peaceful sleep. Mother Am placed a gentle hand on Ari's head. "Be still. Quiet your mind and let the tea do its work." She began lightly stroking Ari's hair, and the motion was so pleasant and calming that Ari almost gave in. "Wait," she managed to protest, fighting to keep herself awake, her thoughts slowly coalescing into coherency through sheer determination. "I can't sleep anymore. I need to get back. Things I need to do. There are people that need me. I can't turn my back." "Hush," Mother Am soothed. "We need you well and whole. You need to relearn the truths you have forgotten." She leaned down to whisper in Ari's ear. "Trust in the strengths of those you have chosen. Have faith in your people and rest." Ari could not fight the effects of the tea any longer. "Have faith in my chosen," she thought as she slid peacefully back into sleep. And that was chapter 3. I love these books. I definitely recommend purchasing them yourself to have on hand, as well as to experience actually reading it. There's a great difference between listening and reading, and you really ought to read it. And then, like, I have my own visuals. I'm providing a certain voice to things as best I can. Not exactly the voices I have in my mind, but an attempt at individual voices. I don't, however, tell you at all what I think of what the individuals look like, and I don't know that I even would be able to. So I have my own mental images. But you gotta read them for yourselves to get the images really flowing, though I understand that not everyone produces images in their mind. So hopefully just reading it to you is giving you the best experience. But I do think most would probably benefit from reading them yourselves, making your own voices and getting your own images. I would think so. Plus, I don't want to get cut off from doing this by like, no sales of the books, because, it's online now. I don't think that would happen. I'm certainly not popular enough to inflict that kind of damage. But you should just get them. I have bought at least the first Transcendent book so many times because I just hand it out to people like, have you read this? Do you like reading? You need to read this? Take it. No, it's okay. I'll buy another one. All right. Chapter 4, but I'll do it in the next video. So this is farewell for now. Thank you for joining us for Chapter 3 of Dissident by Lisa Beeson, Book 4 in the Transcendent series. Fare thee well.